And we're live. Welcome back, everybody. We got RotoPros Sunday morning NFL pre-lock show. I'm Chris Durrell. I'm here with Josh Kronfeld. How you doing today, Josh?
Doing well, Chris. Doing well. Let's break down this slate. We got a nice 10 games. Very windy day today on the East Coast in particular. Let's break down for everybody what this weather means and what these injuries mean.
For sure. Yeah, so we got 4 teams on bye this week: Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Oakland, Seattle, plus the primetime games, plus a game that's starting here, I think, in like 2 or 3 minutes over in London with the Chargers and Titans. So that leaves us just with 10 games this week, and only 2 games of the 50-plus over-under. So that's kind of staying low. That might have something to do with a lot of the wind that that you just kind of talked about there. Like, for instance, the Minnesota Jets game, where they're projecting like 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds throughout the game and gusts of up to 30 mile an hour. So that could really impact passing games. I'm going to dig in a little bit more here, like once we're done with the video, kind of wind direction and stuff, because I think if it's like end zone to end zone, it's not maybe going to affect the passing as much. Maybe run one quarter, pass when you're up there. You could see a lot of bombs with that wind as well. Other games that are being affected today, kind of looking at the Carolina-Philly game with like around 15-mile-an-hour winds, Baltimore, New Orleans, Dallas, Washington. Even the Rams in San Francisco, they're calling for like 10 to 15-mile-an-hour winds in those games. But the biggest one is the Minnesota Jets. How do you really attack the wind when kind of breaking that down in these games?
I mean, if it's a game that I'm interested in and I do think the wind is an issue, then I pretty much won't do much with the passing game. It's pretty simple for me. I mean, throw the ball in the wind. Everyone's played football as a kid. It's a lot of fun to play. I don't really think rain matters as much as people may think it does, but this very windy crosswind is about the worst thing a passing attack can have in its way. It's like a 12th, 13th, and 14th man for a defense. Offensive coordinators don't throw deep down the field with this type of weather. It's a nightmare for a passing game. So for me, it's a boost for the running game if I happen to like that, and I also think that the game script is going to favor the run. But other than that, that's as simply as how I look at it. But I also will say I try not to overthink it and just fade people because there's wind. There's going to be wind everywhere. But yeah, if it's something like upwards of 25 miles an hour, that's serious. And that'll move the ball.
Yep, and that's kind of the way I'm looking at this Vikings game especially. I've been high on Thielen and Kirk Cousins pretty much all week again. Diggs for GPP, but Diggs kind of seems like more of the deep ball guy, so I'm probably going to have a little bit less exposure to Diggs. I still want to get some just in case that win, like I said, is end zone to end zone. We do see some bombs in that game, but for me mainly I'm shifting like pretty much, I'd say like 70 to 80% of my exposure in that game to the run game with mainly Latavius Murray, and that just kind of transitions us right into the injury news with Dalvin Cook being ruled out this week. Latavius Murray is going to get another run, and he did very well. The Vikings finally found a rush game last week, which was nice to see as a Vikings fan here. Hasn't really happened all year. You can't have Kirk Cousins throwing 40 to 50 times every single game this year. But this could be the game where we see Adam Thielen's streak come to an end just with that wind. Who really knows? He does catch a lot of those short routes, but Latavius Murray's the guy I'm concentrated on. He was 24 for 155 and 1, so I could easily see him going for another 20-plus carries this week. And the Jets are about middle of the pack when looking at run defense. And the Vikings are favored, so I could see a heavy game script for Murray this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm looking elsewhere personally at running back, especially with the Carlos Hyde news. I was more into Murray last week, as you know. At home, I thought the game script really favored. The Vikings were like 10-point favorites. A little different for me. On the road in New York, I'm not really sure what to expect. He's not going to kill your lineup because there's no one else there, of course. So, even if I'm right or whatever and you're wrong, the volume will be there. So it's not like he's going to have just like 2 carries and 2 points or something. He scares me a little bit. I don't think he's going to do what he did last week. The Jets have a very physical defense. He had a couple big stiff arms last week, and I think maybe even the team, defenses were sleeping on him a little bit. Everyone was expecting Dalvin Cook. Right until the warm-ups. But I don't know. The Jets, if anything, I guess the wind's a little bit of a factor, but for me, there's no Robbie. It's looking like no Robbie Anderson, or Robbie Anderson may play, but definitely no Enunwa. And I think Terrell Pryor's out too. So I'm interested in Jermaine Kearse on this side of the game. But yeah, I mean, I don't have if you need a Jet stack or a Viking stack, something like that, I don't have a problem with Latavius being in there. I prefer Thielen. Obviously, I'm sure you do too. There's a big price difference.
Yeah.
We already talked about the weather, but Adam Thielen he's too good. He's too good,
Yep.
man. And he's all the short routes. His A.dot's pretty low, so I don't think the wind will really affect his day too much. I think it affects Diggs a little bit more. Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I think the Jets will put up points.
Right on. And yeah, you kind of mentioned it. That was next on my list here. News. Carlos Hyde getting traded to the Jaguars really opens up Nick Chubb as the lead back finally. They wanted to get him the ball. They only give him like 3 carries, and he's done amazing things. I think he's had 3 runs of 20-plus yards so far. He's now going to get lead back role. He's going to be super chalk. Like, his mentions have gone up big time since that trade. But myself, I'm a little weary. I like the price. I will have some Nick Chubb this week. But I'm also interested in Duke Johnson. I think he's going to get a little bit more involved here, especially in the pass game side of things. And on the other side of the ball, I think makes a great pivot for GPPs. I've been talking about it for the last couple of days with a couple customers in chat. I think Peyton Barber he's going to be half the ownership of Nick Chubb. He's only a little bit more on DraftKings, so they're right in the same price range. And Cleveland's given up, I think, like they're ranked 29th in rushing yards per game with like 138 yards per game right now. Tampa Bay's favorite at home, 3.5-point favorite, and that usually correlates to a running back having more success than, say, like you said, with Minnesota being on the road, with Latavius Murray being they're favorites on the road, but they are on the road versus the home team. I'm kind of looking at some definitely going with Peyton Barber this week. I will have, like I said, I will have some Chubb, but Peyton Barber is definitely on my radar as well. Same with Duke Johnson.
Yeah, I will definitely say Chubb is a cash play. I have no interest in him in tournament. Maybe not no, but very little interest in tournaments. He's so cheap that he probably will get upwards of 15 touches today. So it's hard to say he's not a good play at that price. But I'm more interested in Duke Johnson. We've seen those types of pass catching running backs really have success against the Buccaneers this year. They did just fire their coordinator on defense, so when that type of stuff happens and people start playing for jobs a little bit and auditioning for roles with the new guy, it's something to keep an eye on and bear in mind. But my biggest issue with Barber this week, I agree with everything you said. It's just I have a sneaky suspicion that the Browns are going to put up points, and even road home, I don't care. The Bucs defense is so bad against the pass that it's just the whole league knows it, and I expect the Browns to come out, slinging. Baker's got a little bit of his ankle's a little hurt, so somewhat of a risky play. But if the Browns put up points, look, I don't know, it's tough. The Browns have no one to really throw the ball to, so it's hard to say that Barber, isn't a good call or a safe play. But I prefer Duke Johnson. I think Tampa Bay will probably have an early lead in this game, in which case the Browns will be throwing the ball. And even Njoku and Duke Johnson are 2 of the guys who I expect to eat up probably like upwards of at least 10 to 15 targets combined from Mayfield today in a pass.
Cool. No, I like that. I like that take. Myself, it feels like this maybe is a letdown spot for the Browns. I never like seeing like the Cleveland Browns as like the chalkiest plays on the board.
Right?
Scares the shit. I mean, like I said, I'm with you on the cash play for Chubb, but definitely like pivoting to other guys. There is, at the start of the week, it was really murky as to what kind of value we would have at running back position. Well, that's really opened up now. So I think there is some value in pivoting away in GPPs from Chubb, who's going to be really high owned. But I agree with you, David Njoku's my top tight end this week, 100%. So moving on, Rob Gronkowski was downgraded to doubtful yesterday. I think Edelman and Gordon, they were limited during the week, but they're both expected to play. And Sony Michel also was questionable, but he's likely to play this week. So it's a little bit, I guess, wish-washy of what's going to happen in that New England game this week with the passing game. I personally think Edelman's going to be fine. He's going to get his targets. Josh Gordon's more of a GPP upside play. He hasn't been doing a lot with the volume. He got that touchdown 2 weeks ago. I think Chris Hogan can maybe be a sneaky 2% play in GPP plays this week, or GPP games this week. And then Sony Michel, the Bears are just so good. I think they're number 1 against the running back. I was on him earlier in the week just because of the price, but with all the value that has opened up, I'm kind of leaning away from Sony Michel now and think James White's probably going to be more involved this week in the passing game, because the Bears are actually been quite a bit worse against the pass than the run, and Bill Belichick has shown that he will analyze those matchups like that, and he'll take advantage. Like last week, they pretty much ran the ball the whole week. I think we're going to see the opposite of that and see a lot of throwing this week. So I think it's more of a James White game than a Sony Michel game. Your thoughts on the Patriots situation?
Yeah, definitely. I have no interest in Michel whatsoever. I like him when the Patriots are at home and they're favorites. I'm more interested news-wise in Khalil Mack and seeing. I think there's a couple guys on this Bears defense that are questionable for the game. I like Trubisky. I like Taylor Gabriel. Gabriel's not just getting gadget plays; they're like really throwing deep to him a couple times a game too. So I'm into that. He's not cheap, but like he's still a little too cheap, I think, especially given the matchup. We saw what Tyreek did to the Patriots last week. I think you're right. Edelman will get his targets. I think Gronk's been out. He's been ruled out now. I don't really have much interest in Dwayne Allen. I don't even really know his price or much about him, but Belichick isn't really one of those guys that just like force the ball to the backup just because he's the backup. It's not like the Steelers who, just whoever's the running back, they're going to give the Le'Veon Bell treatment.
Yeah.
It's not like the Patriots are just going to start featuring Dwayne Allen today because Gronk's out, whom they haven't been featuring that much anyway. So I think you're totally right. It's a James White game for sure. I have zero interest in Michel. White, I could totally see putting upwards of 15, 20 with like 9 catches today.
And could be lower.
I want to see what happens with Khalil Mack.
He's 7,300 on FanDuel. That just seems ridiculous for a third down back who's getting the targets, but he's getting wide receiver kind of targets. So on the Khalil Mack side of things, just reading here now that Schefter is reporting that he is expected to play. So
look, I don't have much interest in Brady, and that definitely confirms it. So
yeah.
But other than that, in this game alone, James White is probably the best play. He's very expensive on both sites, but that's where I see the production going today.
Cool.
I like Josh Gordon as a GPP. He's a good play. I think Josh Gordon's a decent play. I'm into him today. Like you said, the Bears have been significantly worse against the pass and the run. So, if we know that, Belichick knows that.
So another big one that I wanted to mention here that could be something that we can use for cash games for sure and salary relief is Quincy Enunwa being out. You mentioned that. Pryor, I think Pryor's out as well, like you said. Jermaine Kearse, he jumped in after Enunwa got hurt last week. He jumped into the slot there, put up a big game. He hadn't been really used pretty much the whole season. Came in, had a big game. I think he had 95 yards out of the slot. He received 94 yards, caught 9 of his 10 balls, 13.9 FanDuel points. He's only 5K this week. At 2 times value in cash games, he only needs 10 points. So he gets somewhere in that range of 80 yards, 8 catches, something like that. He's going to be hitting cash value. Is he someone that you're interested in cash, or is it more of a GPP thing? I'm more interested in cash than GPP.
Yeah, it's a cash play for me, not really a GPP play, in my opinion. I'm not into the recency bias of think, he did it last week, so he's going to do the exact same thing again this week. And, it's not impossible. But for cash, it's safe. I'm not really on Jermaine Kearse much in tournaments. I think I'm trying to find his price here. Oh, there he is, 12.8. Yeah, look, he's a good price, 4,100. Minnesota's pretty terrible. Actually, no, I'll be honest with you. The matchups there, I'm into Jermaine Kearse. Minnesota's been horrible against slot receivers. I think that they've been giving up like 10 yards an attempt or some crazy stat like that. And they've been giving up like 115 a game to slot receivers, some crazy stats like that. So the matchups there and the game theory's there because Pryor and Enunwa are both out. So I like Kearse, honestly. I think he's a pretty safe play today. I think he's more cashy, but if you want to throw him in a GPP, I wouldn't, hang you for it.
No, you definitely made, talking about the matchup there, Hughes is out for the season now for Minnesota, their rookie, who he was very up and down. Well, now they got Mackenzie Alexander in there, and he's been by far their worst corner so far. So, yeah, the matchup is great, and especially at that DraftKings price. Sorry about that. He definitely makes sense as a salary relief guy. If you're trying to jam in, the tricky thing about this slate is Todd Gurley's price, especially on FanDuel, has gone through the roof. But Todd Gurley's hitting value every single week, so you really got to, if you want to get him in with some big wide receivers as well, you looked at 2 or 3 of these cheap guys, and he's one of the guys that I think can definitely hit value with this matchup and game flow. If Minnesota's going to be leading, we talked about the wind, but if Kearse is in the slot, getting those short passes, kind of like Thielen on the other side of the ball.
Darnold really loves to pepper the slot targets.
He was hitting Enunwa early. Enunwa was hitting that value in the slot early in the season. So Kearse definitely makes a lot of sense there. So, yeah. Moving on.
When you like a guy and the game theory's there and then the matchup's there too, it's hard not to take him.
Yeah. So moving on, kind of touched on this a little bit. You did. Allen Robinson is questionable this week for the Bears. Back to that game. I think personally, you talked about Taylor Gabriel, definitely like him. Tariq Cohen stands out for me as well as a running back who's going to catch balls out of the backfield today in that game. And then Trey Burton for me is a GPP pivot off Njoku. He's only like a couple hundred more. And, you know, kind of looking at the ownership projections, Njoku's going to be like that 20 to 25% owned in GPPs, whereas Burton looks like he's going to be like in that 10 to 12, 10 to 15% range. So if you're looking to make a pivot there, I think Trey Burton makes a lot of sense. He's starting to show some chemistry. I believe he's got a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games as well with Trubisky. So that's kind of something I'm looking at with that injury news here this week.
Yeah. I like him. You know, I think the whole world's on Njoku this week, so he makes a pivot. I think he's similar pricing, right?
Yeah, I think he's 6,000 on FanDuel, and then he's let's just check it out here real quick.
You know something? I want to backtrack 1 second. I didn't realize that Jacob Hollister, who's the Patriots' 3rd string tight end, was also out today. So Dwayne Allen's 2,600. He's really the only tight end on the roster who's active. I'm sure they have some backup they called up from the practice squad, but I don't mind. You know, they're going to have to throw the ball today. I don't see the Patriots just like getting an early lead and running the clock out. So Dwayne Allen's an interesting GPP play. I changed my take.
Well, if he gets, you know, even 3 catches for 30 yards there,
right.
I mean,
6
points, and that's over 2 times value. He catches a touchdown or something like that. He's crushing his value. So it definitely makes sense.
Yeah. I know Gronk hasn't done much this year, but I think this is a matchup where he would have had a good day.
Yeah. So moving on.
Time where they need him, you know.
I want your take on, well, Cooper Kupp is out, so we've got Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks. If you had to choose one of those 2 guys today to run, who is your favorite? Who do you think is going to get more of the target share?
For me, it is one of the easiest selections I've ever. I've had. You've never asked me a question that I've had an easier, quicker answer.
Good. So, throwing you softballs.
No, that was actually a great question. I just happened to. It's just the perfect one for me because I happen to really have a good answer. I think that Robert Woods is the absolute home run play today. They're going to be shifting him into the slot, into the Cooper Kupp role, and they're going to probably be putting Josh Reynolds, who's their 2nd round. I'm not sure if he's 2nd rounder, but he's a 2nd-year guy or a rookie. I don't remember. He's very young, but he's good in college. He's filling in for Cooper Kupp. But I think they're going to stick Reynolds in the on the outside, on the right side, which is where Richard Sherman stays and just exists all day. So McVay's a genius. We already know that. I think today will be a Gurley and a Woods day. I don't have a problem with Cooks. I think he'll probably get his too. But Woods and Gurley are my guy. They throw to Cooper Kupp or something in the red zone like 25% of the time or something crazy. Woods is going to be the slot role today. Not Richard Sherman guarding him. I'm all over it.
Yep. And, you know, I'm just kind of looking at some game theory stuff here today with Gurley being so high owned. I think there's a lot of ways that we can, in GPPs, that we can pivot away from that high ownership. And one of the ways is right in that game. Like you said, I mean, if you want to go, if you're multi-entry, I'm talking multi-entry here. If you're running one lineup, you're obviously running Todd Gurley.
Right, exactly.
Probably got that
clear to everybody. If you have one lineup, especially in GPPs, you're not fading Gurley. But if you have multiple, of course, you have your Gurley exposure like covered. Hell yeah, it's worth it to, you know, get away from that in a few lineups.
Then you can get the passing game. You know, if for some reason, and, you know, crazier things happen in the NFL where maybe Gurley hits, you know, just maybe like cash value and he doesn't really hit his upside
maybe he
today.
Gets 200 yards and no touchdowns for some reason, you know?
Yeah. Then, you know, getting Goff in there with its passing game is a good way to GPP pivot away from that Gurley ownership in GPPs. That's one way I'm looking at it this week. Another way, before we get going on any more injury news, I'm really looking at, you know, the Bears got destroyed by Brock Osweiler last week. That was pretty crazy. So that
I don't understand what the fuck happened. I'm sorry for my language, but like, how does that happen?
Yeah, but that just kind of goes to show that even the best defenses can be exposed on a weekly basis. So something I'm looking at this week, is, and you can call me crazy, a lot of people already have this week, but I'm definitely loading up on it, is going with the Breeze Thomas Gurley. If you want to,
glad you brought that up. Yeah,
because I think Breeze is don't get me wrong, Baltimore is an elite defense, probably one of the best defenses in the entire league. They don't allow a lot of passing yards per game. It's the only team Breeze, I think, hasn't beat in his career. I think they said something like that this week. And he's, for one, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Two, it's like people forget about Michael Thomas with all the Adam Thielen, Antonio Brown stuff. He's an elite wide receiver. He's got 95% catch rate. So you're getting two elite players. There is a scenario where Drew Brees and the Saints can attack the Baltimore Ravens, and he put up, three times value, 4 times value in this game, and both of them are going to be sub 5% owned. So if you want to you don't even have to use Gurley. I'm just using that as a scenario where I've made lineups and I've got all 3 in there. They're expensive, but there's enough value out there this week that is enough of a pivot in GPPs, getting a quarterback, wide receiver stack play that's under 5%, where you can totally separate yourself while still getting the chalk in your lineup if the chalk hits.
Yeah, I think Flacco builds are some of my favorite builds on the week. So if you do like a Flacco, Willie Snead, or John Brown type thing and run it back with Kamara or Michael Thomas, you can still fit Gurley in there. You can still fit, Njoku, and a decent defense. And especially now with all the Browns value, you can fit like a Duke or a Chubb in there too. So that's a great call, I think. And I think you hit the I always mess this up. The nail on the head.
You got it.
Yeah, there we go. The nail on the head, because even though Baltimore is one of the best defenses in the league, their offense is very underrated. They've been playing well, and it's a pretty high total for this game for what for Baltimore. So
the total surprised me when I looked at it early in the week, and that's what kind of got me on the track of how do I want to pivot this week.
Yeah.
I've been really chasing the chalk a bit in GPPs, and you have to be perfect when you're chasing the chalk. If you don't have those separators, like, well, Brock Osweiler won like everybody a tournament. Not everybody, sorry, he was 0.5% owned.
You had the balls to put Osweiler in a tournament lineup worth anything more than like $10, then you deserve all the money you got.
Yeah. Yeah. So another question here, just got a question in chat. What about the Watson DeAndre Hopkins stack this week? So that kind of goes on the same lines of a GPP pivot because it's a tough matchup against Jacksonville. Jacksonville hasn't been terrific defensively the last few weeks. It's going to be super low owned kind of the same way. It's going to be a little bit cheaper than the Breeze Thomas that I talked about. And the upside is most definitely there. The total's a little bit lower in that game, so it scares me a little bit. But with these low owned stacks like that, you don't need to really have a whole bunch of them to have more than the field when looking at ownership projections. You can definitely have, if you're putting in 20 lineups and you have 2 with Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, you're probably going to have more ownership than the field. So that's something that's also positive with going with some of these low-owned guys, is you don't have to put in a ton of combinations of them to have more ownership than the field, which you have to with chalky. If you're going with a lot of Gurley this week, you need to have Gurley in like 60-70% of your lineups if that's the guy you're going with this week and concentrating on, because you want to have more than the field and you want to have as many combinations of Gurley as possible, so that when Gurley does go off and get those huge 3 times, 4 times, 5 times value points, that you have enough combinations where you're going to hit the right combination more often than your opponents going against you using Gurley as well.
Definitely. It's a good point. Good analysis there.
So yeah, I'm on the Watson Hopkins a little bit. Like I said, if I'm doing 20 lineups, I'm probably going to only have 1 or 2 of those. I'm going to have more Breeze Thomas, but definitely in play as a contrarian stack as well. So my next thought,
Hopkins is very cheap. He's got to have obviously Ramsey on him. We saw Ramsey's no better than Tre'Davious White, or if he is, like, not that much. And, Hopkins had a good game against White, but when you take a guy like that against a guy like Ramsey or Hop or White or whatever, they're probably not going to go for the 25, 30 that they're capable of going for. So it's I think he's too cheap still for the volume he gets. I love Watson too. He's too cheap, but I don't really love it this week.
For sure. My next question for you, looking at some more injury news here, is Jamison Crowder is going to be out. Paul Richardson's doubtful. Chris Thompson is questionable. Do you think this may be the week that Jordan Reed actually does something?
If it is, it won't be for my team.
No?
Nope.
I think he's going to be low owned. I might have, again, if I'm doing those 20 yeah, I might put him in one, maybe two lineups just to try and get exposure, but it's been really disappointing chasing the Jordan Reed trade
every week. So
yep.
more than any other position, tight end ruins my lineup. So I'm sticking with Zach Ertz and David Njoku this week.
Nice. I like it.
I don't think anyone else is going to touch my lineup. Why? Yeah, maybe some Dwayne Allen in the millionaire. That's it.
And then one of my final thoughts here when looking at injuries and stuff like that is Theo Riddick is out this week, so that maybe changed the landscape of Detroit. Is this the Kerryon Johnson breakout week?
I heard some good analysis in a pod I was listening to earlier saying that, look, if you want to be the guy to take Kerryon Johnson this week, and maybe this is his breakout week, and you're the one who's there first, good for you. I tip my cap. I'm not going to do it.
No. I'm definitely going to have some this week. He looks good. We're just watching the games. He had, he's had 70, 55, 101 his last 3 games, but he's only had a max of 16 carries. That was against New England. I think in this matchup, Miami's shown they can give up some yards on the ground. And as long as, LeGarrette Blount stays the heck out of the way and Johnson can maybe have that touchdown upside as well, he's getting, some targets in the pass game, but I think this could definitely boost his targets as long as, they don't go out there and put, what's his name, Amir Abdullah out there giving him the passes this week. But even against San Francisco in week 2, Kerryon Johnson seen, I think that was week 2. It was his second game of the year anyway. He caught 5 of 6 passes, so they will throw to him. He's a pretty good pass catcher. So at his price, I think he's going to be low owned. I'll definitely be taking some chances with him. I'm doing a ton of lineups this week, so it's not like I'm jamming him in 50, 60% of my lineups. He's more of like a 10 to 15% guy. And if he goes off and I have him with, pairing him and Gurley together, something like that, and some other chalk, he's definitely a guy I like as a pivot to get away from some of the chalky lineups that are going to be out there this week. Because I think one of the most popular running back constructions this week is going to be Gurley and Chubb. 100%. Like, it's going to be so high owned, it's going to be crazy. So definitely looking at that.
Yeah, we better hope Chubb doesn't do anything too nuts, because if it does, it's going to
hurt.
He's going to have the ownership that James Conner had in week 1.
Yeah. So then jumping over to the running back position, we got another question here. A guy asking about Matt Breida and Kenyon Drake. Do you have any takes on either of those running backs?
What's the question? Are we asking about DFS or season long or?
Yeah, DFS. Just any takes whatsoever. Thoughts on Breida or Drake today?
I think Breida's interesting. I didn't really think of him initially, but like the game script should favor him. They'll probably be down. The Rams just score so much, so often, and so quickly that I don't see a situation where, if San Francisco does come out ahead, it'll mean they're scoring points. So I don't know. What's Breida's price? He's pretty.
5,300 on DraftKings, 6,200.
It's an interesting question. Whoever, that's a good question. I think Breida's definitely worth it. He's worth a look. I prefer Breida to some of the other guys around there.
Michelle's right there in the same price range.
And Drake, I think, it's just like Frank Gore is such a solid hand on like half the snaps. I don't really see the upside with Drake.
Yeah.
Breida's interesting for sure.
Myself, I'm not on Breida this week. I'm more going down to Tariq Cohen, Latavius Murray. Myself, just because of that game script.
He's going at the same price.
Yeah. Tariq Cohen, he's a little 300 more on FanDuel. I'm definitely going to Tariq Cohen there. I think he's going to get the targets, whereas Breida's only averaging like 2.2 targets per game right now. So I like him more if San Francisco was playing like a team where, San Francisco was a favorite. But being from behind, I just don't think he's going to get 7 to 10 targets like Tariq Cohen's been getting. So definitely on the Tariq Cohen over Breida. And then Drake, I think he makes a GPP guy that you maybe only need to throw in 1 or 2 lineups. That's it, because Detroit has been awful against the run. It sucks that Frank Gore's been getting that, but a lot of people, just game theory here again, a lot of people are going to be chasing those Frank Gore points from last week. So, a nice pivot if you want to with people. If you're looking to target against the Detroit run game, Kenyon Drake makes sense to get some very low ownership versus Frank Gore, who's, again, I think Gore's more expensive this week again. Let me just double check it. No, Gore's down in 3,800 range, so he's way down there. So even with that price, coming off a good game, being that Gore's cheaper, I think Drake makes a good GPP pivot, but he's going to be super low owned, so you only need him. If you're making, again, 10 lineups, 20 lineups, throwing them in 1, maybe 2 lineups is pretty much all you're going to need to have more than the field. Anything else at the running back position? Anyone else that you're really concentrating on this week? I like
Marlon Mack. I think Marlon Mack is very under the radar. I think he's $4,400 on DraftKings. I have him in season long. This is someone I've been waiting for to get healthy for a while. He looked great last week. He's a little rusty on the first play of the game. He, dumped it off to him from Luck, and he bobbled it, and the Jets caught it for a pick six. And, that was just whatever. That shit happens sometimes. Marlon Mack had 12 or 13 touches last week, just under 100 yards. I think they should beat the Bills today. They're at home. I think this could be the first game of the year where the Colts may attempt to establish a running game, especially also considering the fact that the Bills have a good secondary. So,
yeah, no, that makes sense. So just kind of backtracking here, we got some new people jumping into chat. Tom Brady, Hogan. He calls it a handcuff, but I think he means like a stack.
Hogan. Less than zero interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone who watches the games recently, he has no real role for that. I mean, I guess he has a couple catches a day, but he's not. They have so many options and so many better options than him.
Yeah, for sure.
Not all limited. I like Hogan, but otherwise, no.
Cool. I know. I mentioned earlier I've got a little bit of interest in Hogan just because of all the banged up guys in the passing game. We don't really know the exact health of Edelman. But I think Edelman's going to get definitely the target share. Then James White, I think, is second. So Hogan's kind of third, and he really needs to catch that deep ball for him to hit value lately. He's not getting the target share. So I mean, on his 3-4 targets that he's getting, he needs to catch 3 of them, and one of them at least needs to go for long, and he needs to get in the end zone. So there's a lot of things that need to go right for Hogan. So I'm definitely with you there on that, kind of avoiding that a little bit. So definitely, if you want to take a low-owned gamble, I mean, Hogan's definitely going to be your guy in that pass game. But, yeah, we both kind of agreed on so far that James White's going to be the guy that we're both kind of targeting in that pass game more than anyone else. The Tom Brady circle of trust we always talk about with James White, and he's definitely there. He's got something on Brady.
When they're in a game where, they're actually serious and they need to focus, he doesn't try out new people. He goes to the ones he loves and trusts and who've come through for him in the past. That's a limited number of guys. So I guess in that argument, you'd give Hogan a boost, but I still don't think it's enough.
Cool. What are your thoughts on TJ Yeldon? I don't think Hyde's going to be – I don't even know if he's dressing yet. I haven't double-checked on that. But even if he is, I mean, jumping into an offense 2 or 3 days in, I think TJ Yeldon's still in store for, high share. And they're 4.5-point favorites in that game as well. So what are your thoughts on Yeldon?
I think it's a matter of time before Yeldon gets hurt. He's not a feature back. He's not built like a feature back. He never was. He didn't get drafted like a feature back. And the whole reason that they just traded for Hyde is because they know he's not. So if the team isn't confident, yeah, great. People can say, oh, they wanted a backup plan. They wanted an insurance plan. Nah, I don't think so. Either Jamal Charles is horrible and completely sucks, and they have seen in practice that he's just nothing, and that's why they traded for Hyde. Or what's more likely, and what I think, is that they know it's only a matter of time before Yeldon gets hurt. He can't handle 15, 20 touches a day, in my opinion. And also, if that wasn't enough reason for you, I don't like his price. And I love the in front.
So many other running backs now that are there that I don't think we need to, like we have in weeks past, concentrate on Yeldon as much, especially in this matchup against Houston. They're ranked
running backs from between 55 to 6,500. I really don't like that this week.
Yep. And then another question we got here: do you like Torrey Smith as a GPP play this week?
I mean, how deep are you digging for that? Come on, just make some more cash in your roster.
The problem with Smith is that Cam doesn't really throw a deep ball, and
exactly. It's 25-mile-an-hour winds today in that game. They're not throwing the deep ball to anybody.
No, so I'm with you. I'm 100% off Torrey Smith. If anything in that game, Cam's going to run more. We're going to see some short dump-off passes to Christian McCaffrey, who I like. If you're pivoting off Todd Gurley in any way, or you're playing the early slate where Todd Gurley's not on, Christian McCaffrey is definitely my top choice there.
I don't want this guy, whoever just asked that question, to think I'm not saying don't play Torrey Smith. He's not going to hit value. I don't mean it like that, but it's just such a gamble. There's better options. I think Jermaine Kearse is $400 more. Just get him. That's guaranteed volume with Kearse.
Yeah, and a good matchup. He's got a better matchup. He's in the slot, which means he's going to get
nothing wrong with playing naked Cam.
Yeah, I'm all over naked Cam. That's
exactly.
the direction I'm going in cash myself this week. He's hit value. Just jumping on this a little bit. I look at 2 times value on FanDuel for cash, 3 times on DraftKings.
Yeah.
He's hit 2 times value, cash value on FanDuel every single week this season, and he's hit 3 times value or more on FanDuel the other 3 games, or in 3 of those 6 games. So he's just hitting value every single week. He's like their goal line running back. I just keep talking about it. He doesn't hit that 300-yard bonus, which, you know, you kind of want on DraftKings, but he's still hitting cash value because he's got that running upside on the goal line. They're just not giving it to McCaffrey on the goal line. They just do that
early in the year. He just can't get it in.
No. Oh, just big bomb right now to who is that, number 81? Is that Tyrell Williams again? It is.
Oh, you're watching the game. I think you meant there was injury news.
No.
Oh, just, good. Tyrell, he's done so well except for the week that I needed him to qualify. What a fucking joke.
That's so frustrated. Oh, no, sorry. It's
Oh, excuse me. The guy going against the Raiders who give up the most deep plays in the fucking NFL, and he gets like 3 catches for 60 yards or so. They target him 3 times. And then, oh, let's go to Cleveland and give him 2 touchdowns. Oh, let's go to London. What else? How much more you want?
I'm going to interrupt your rant. It was actually Mike Williams. Sorry, I seen Williams. So not as bad, but
not as bad.
I'd like to rant a little bit because I had Williams is their touchdown upside guy as well. I had him last week. I was so excited. I was just kind of watching the game in the background last week. I seen Williams score, and I'm like, yes, because he was like, I don't know, 4% owned in GPPs. I was cheered, and then the freaking Tyrell Williams, and then he goes and scores another touchdown. So, yeah, to add to your rant, Tyrell Williams is pissing us both off.
Son of a bitch.
Okay. Don't have any more questions there. Is there any other wide receivers that you're looking at, like on the Detroit side of things? I know it's kind of muddled up.
Galladay is one of my favorite plays.
Yeah. That's the guy I was going to mention as well.
One of my favorite. They're calling him Babytron.
Yep. He's been the most consistent.
Yeah. He's the man. He's freaking huge. He's like he's literally a gazelle. How big he is. Tyrell prances like a gazelle when he's open. Galladay just runs like I don't know what he is. He's what I picture like police robots in like the future. He's just jacked and like tall and fucking. I don't know. I love it.
And I don't know. To me, if not so much. If Marvin Jones was ever to get hurt and Galladay took over like more target share, he had 12 targets in his first game. He's only had 9, 7, 4, and 9. If he ever got like 10 to 15 targets per game, like some of these elite wide receivers, he would be $8,000 to $9,000. He's been
unlucky this year too. Like there's been a bunch of stuff called back from him. Like long catches, touchdowns, like.
Yeah, so
who are you taking more of? Baker Mayfield at 5,800 or Cam at 59?
Cam. I'm definitely on more Cam. Just for one, the ownership, and 2, I mean, Cam's a proven commodity, and he hits value every single week. Like I said, it scares the shit out of me. The Browns chalk this week. I know I love the matchup, but I mean, Baker Mayfield's only completing like 54% of his passes this year, which hurts everything in the pass game. I mean, if he has that one game where he clicks, if we're ever going to see his upside, I think it's got to be this week. And if it doesn't happen this week, it kind of scares me going forward for him. But I just scared of the chalk, and I'm pivoting off to something. I think I know more of what Cam is as a quarterback, and he's got that rushing upside.
So very good assessment. Sometimes the chalk is scary.
Yeah. I mean, if it hits, I'm going to look dumb this week, and I don't mind looking dumb. I'm just kind of looking. This week I've concentrated a lot of my brain power, which isn't a lot, to going with game theory for GPPs. I mean, cash plays for sure. It's always the same process for me, but for GPPs, I was really concentrating on game theory this week and how we can get some low owned and separate ourselves in GPPs to win these big tournaments, because I'm really starting to shift my focus that way. That's the way I was before. I played a lot of GPPs the last 2 years. I kind of focused on more cash games early this season, and now I'm getting into more GPP game theory kind of stuff. So that might be an article I'm going to be writing here pretty soon when I get into my strategy article. I know it's getting kind of mid-season-y, but we've got a lot of weeks left.
I get mine up for basketball. I've just been like procrastinating. I don't know.
I find it good though to play a little bit more in the season, because every season's a little bit different. But fading the chalk, not so much fading the chalk, especially because I multi-entry. I'll still have chalk plays, but for the most part, on those other lineups to be contrarian, I think fading the chalk in those contrarian lineups is by far the best way to go. It may not work every week, but when it does work, you're going to be the only one. You're not going to have a tied lineup with anyone. You're going to have a unique lineup. Like I said, if Breeze and Thomas go off this week, I'm going to be doing very well. Same with, some of these other GPP pivots that we talked about, low-owned guys. So that's just kind of the game theory things that I'm looking at this week for sure.
All right, let's start breaking down positions.
Yeah, we kind of went through most of the plays. I kind of tried to just throw in the positions as we went along. So we've been doing very good. So, we're almost got that wrapped up. I'm just kind of going through the positions to see if there's anyone that we didn't talk about or anyone I want maybe your opinion on. I'm not really seeing anyone. Like we talked about the tight ends, the ones that we like. And Njoku is kind of our consensus favorite. I like pivoting to Burton. You're like going up to Zach Ertz there. I'm going to have a little bit of Jordan Reed. We talked about wide receivers, Thielen up there, number one. One guy we didn't talk about who I'm willing to go with because he's getting the volume and his prices started to come down, especially on FanDuel, is Jarvis Landry. 6,500 on FanDuel. Like, there's no one else. I'm going down the list here. I've got my sheet sorted by DraftKings. There is no one else in the rankings of DraftKings pricing where Landry falls at 6,500 on FanDuel until you get down to like Allen Robinson, Calvin Ridley in that range. So he's someone I'm looking at, especially on FanDuel this week. He's going to get the share. He's only catching, because Baker Mayfield's only completing 53, 54% of his passes. Landry's only been catching 54, 55% of his passes, but he's getting all the volume. And in this matchup against Tampa Bay, I think Landry's kind of the guy. It's kind of Landry and Njoku for me. And you'll kind of see in my cash lineups later that I'm not really looking to Baker. I'm looking to go with Cam, and then I like Landry and Njoku in my cash lineups. They're going to get a ton of volume.
Yeah, definitely. What was this? Our cash conviction?
I'm just kind of going over guys we maybe didn't mention. I'm just kind of going through Ezekiel Elliott. We didn't talk about him. What are your thoughts on Ezekiel Elliott against Washington?
It's a great play. It's volume. It's that's what you look for, especially on a week like this where there's not that much obvious plays or free squares.
For sure. That just kind of wraps up, unless you have anyone else that we maybe didn't cover so far, but that covers pretty much.
I think so. I like Marlon Mack. I think this is a very cool week for cheap running backs. You can get away with, if you want to fade Gurley, do it right and spend like 8 or 9K combined on your running backs.
I love that take.
Do the rest, get stud receivers and tight ends.
Yeah, that's a beautiful GPP pivot right there in some of your lineups to be contrarian.
Do a little Chubb and Duke or Chubb and Marlon Mack, or who did you love at like 5? Latavius Murray and Chubb or something,
Latavius Murray and Barber, I've gotten some lineups just going against the high-owned guys in the same price range, and that's pivoting there like that is a great way to go. So I think even Alvin Kamara, this with the wind in that game, I think
the fun GPP play this week. I have no idea what he's going to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Ingram got a ton of
like your Breeze
volume coming back. Yeah. But, definitely looking at New Orleans first. And if it's going to be windy, I'm going to have a lot of Breeze Thomas and Breeze Kamara because, Kamara gets those short catches and can do a ton with it. They may be off of Ingram this week, and people will be scared to go with Kamara because Ingram came back and had a big week and commanded the touch share.
Yeah, I mean, if Kamara gets 4 fucking touches at 8,500, it kills your lineup. So, people will be scared, but it's not going to happen again. So,
no, I don't think so either.
Not today.
That was just getting him back in the fold, I think.
That was the perfect storm. They wanted to get Ingram into the fold. They wanted to give Kamara a rest. They had a bye the week after. It was smart coaching, in my opinion.
Got a question in chat here before we get going. As a punt tight end, do you have any interest in Nick O'Leary? He caught 4 last week for 49 and a touchdown from Osweiler. I myself, I'm not really looking to him. I think teams didn't really have a game plan against Osweiler, being that he got called the starter late last week. And now with an extra week, I think I think the game plan is definitely going to be there. Detroit's going to game plan for Osweiler better than Chicago did last week. So I'm definitely off of Miami's offense. Besides, I like getting Kenyon Drake in there, like I said, is like a very low-owned GPP play. But what's your thoughts on O'Leary?
You said it perfectly. He was Cutler's guy last week. It's a sharp,
Osweiler.
Sorry, yeah, Osweiler's guy last week. Yeah, they both suck. So I just both, So it's a sharp thing to notice, a sharp observation. But I think it's a little bit of a reach this week. I think you said it perfectly. It's simple as that. Brock looked like all-world Brock last week. It was the perfect storm. No one expected him to play. No one game planned for him. But, you fast forward a week, Brock's not going to sneak up on anybody.
You can guarantee that Detroit, looking at that game film of that game last week, is saying Osweiler is not doing that to us.
Exactly.
It's probably the first thing they said, Monday, Tuesday morning when breaking down film. They are not doing that to us. Holy shit, Derrick Henry scored a touchdown.
Too, and he was very frustrated with their performance. So
yeah, Derrick Henry just scored a touchdown. I cannot believe it.
First one of the year.
He's in the end zone. I never thought I'd see him in the end zone this year. And he's on my bench in season long. Just terrific.
Of course he is.
Terrific. Yeah, so that pretty much wraps it up for us here. Good show again. We went over some injuries. We went over some game theory. That's something we didn't do really a whole bunch of last week. So I really like the game theory aspect of GPPs, talking about that.
DFS.
Yeah, so if you're not a RotoPros member yet, make sure to get over. You can get a 2-week free trial at rotopros.com/signup. Get in, you get access to our Slack chat channel where we're pretty much in there almost 24/7. We do sleep though sometimes. Answering questions, we cover all the sports. Yeah. So we're in there a lot, answering questions. We got, some one-on-one coaching if you need that. Share some ideas with GPP, strategies, stuff like that. We're there to help you out. So get over, sign up for that 2-week trial, and come win with us. Other than that, Josh, thanks for joining me this week. We'll be back next week with another very similar show. Hit like on the video if you're watching, and subscribe to our channel. We got a ton of videos coming out on the YouTube channel. And if you hit the notifications button as a subscriber, you're going to get that notification when we either go with live shows or when new videos like strategy videos. I'm looking at PGA strategy, NASCAR, NFL. I do cheat sheets for all those sports. So if you want to learn how to use those cheat sheets, definitely check out our YouTube channel. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Look into doing some post-lock shows too for NBA. So there's a lot to look forward to on our YouTube. Well said.
Awesome. So thanks for joining me, Josh. Thanks for joining me, everyone that watched this week. Let's go make some lineups, get some green screens, and cash big. Cheers.
Let's do it, guys. Happy Sunday. Good job, Chris.